You're listening to Soap Dirt, the latest in television entertainment news.
Hey, Sister Wives fans. So we have Tony Padron recently turning up with some insight on Kody Brown's habits, and he's talking about it in real time during the mid-season break. But before we get into what Tony spilled about Kody's strange behavior, please click that subscribe button. So we've seen Tony Padron share a few things in common with his father-in-law, Kody Brown, and these similarities go beyond each of them sporting a head full of wild hair. Neither Tony nor Kody seem to have a filter, the one most people use to stop and think about what they're going to say before they actually say it. And other members of the extended Sister Wives family have said before that Tony and Kody just blurt out whatever they're thinking. Robyn, Christine, Meri, and Janelle, all of Kody's wives, have mentioned that he lacks a filter. They've said it so many times throughout the 19 seasons. And more recently, Christine Brown said the same thing about her son-in-law, Tony, who is, of course, married to her daughter, Mykelti Brown. So we have it from a few good sources that both Kody and Tony speak before thinking, and Kody's lack of filter has put him in hot water through the years and made Tony look pretty outrageous on Sister Wives as well. And recently, Mykelti and Tony offered some inside info on the family. They share these videos they make, and I have to say that this most recent one was a little less than gripping, Even the critique they gave on the cruise they just took was kind of bland. But anyway, on this recent video, Mykelti and her hubby sat down to watch a really old episode of Sister Wives. It was season 4, episode 1. And then they were commenting on what they watched. But there was a problem with this. You didn't get to watch along with her and Tony. Instead, you got to watch them watching this episode without being able to see it. And they also had the volume turned down super low on the episode that they were watching. So most of the time you had no idea what Mykelti and Tony were even seeing on their screen while they were making some comments. And if I had to guess, Mykelti probably didn't want to get in trouble for violating TLC's copyright by airing a classic episode within her video, but it was still, in the end, kind of dull. However, she and Tony did touch on a couple of things that has me intrigued. Something from that season 4 episode sparked Mykelti's memories of one of Kody's parenting strategies from her childhood days. Mykelti said one of her favorite memories of family time with her dad was when he'd sit down and watch a movie with all the kids. Now, mind you, that's a lot of kids, right? So it's probably hard to imagine that Kody would be interacting a lot with kids during a movie. Most people, if they're polite, don't do a lot of talking while they're watching TV, but Mykelti said they would all talk about the movie, and she said they'd break out in wrestling matches while the movie was still playing in the background, and I'm sure that's a result of just that many kids in one room. And that's interesting, but it wasn't the surprising part of what Mykelti and Tony said about this time with Kody, because Mykelti said as the kids got older and kind of less interested in family movie time, that Kody changed his ritual on family movie night. So she said that Kody still sat with the family, but he focused on his cell phone screen. And Mykelti also said that by doing that, that kind of lowered Kody's interaction with his kids to 0 on these nights. So it was just their dad staring at his phone while ignoring the kids. That's what it sounds like. And Mykelti has a theory on why her dad's attention went to his phone instead of his kids. She thinks that Kody was just so used to watching TV with the kids that this was the next best thing, just on a smaller screen. That kind of seems like a reach to me. And then Tony piled on, and he said father-in-law Kody spends a huge amount of time on his phone, staring at the screen. And Tony also said that when the family gets together, that Kody just sits there in the middle of everybody day with his head buried in his phone. I mean, you expect that from a teenager, right? But for a guy his age, maybe he's looking at hair care tips. I don't know. But especially with your family there, total parenting fail to me. So while Tony was discussing Kody and his cell phone habits, we saw Tony's lack of filter kind of come out because Mykelti's hubby said something a little bit snarky, a little bit risque. Tony said he hopes Kody at least puts the phone down once he goes into the bedroom. So honestly, though, from what we've seen on Sister Wives in this season, a cell phone in the bedroom is the least of Kody's problems with his wives, even back then in season 4. To her credit, Mykelti actually defended her dad. She said that although Kody was really focused on his phone during family functions and it didn't help with bonding, it actually worked against him having any quality time with his kids. But then Mykelti kind of threw him a lifeline, threw him a bone. She made an excuse for his behavior. She said maybe in Kody's mind, looking at the phone screen was a substitute for the movies they used to watch. What? I know, but she said it. So in her eyes, Kody was doing what was natural to him when everybody got together, right? But the expression on Tony's face in the video they were making kind of indicated he was not buying Mykelti's excuse for Kody focusing on his phone rather than on his kids. And Tony's a parent and he's a dad, and I don't think he does that stuff. I guess we'll find out in a few years when they're making a confessional about him and Mykelti. So Tony also brought up Christine Brown, Mykelti's mom, and he said Christine probably would have left Kody years and years ago, if not for the kids. And Mykelti also piped up with some of the things she remembers seeing as a teenager. And this is interesting. She said Christine really didn't have a relationship with Meri or Robyn through most of the plural marriage. That's not so surprising. But this is. She said Christine and Janelle, although they're close now, that they were not always like that they were cordial to each other as sister wives for many years, but apparently they weren't best buds like they are now. And then, of course, there's Kody, who wasn't giving Christine what she needed for a decade. So Mykelti agreed with Tony and that her mom stayed so the kids could be around their sibs from the other wives. But if it wasn't for the kids needing the rest of the family, Mykelti and Tony agreed that Christine probably would have left a long time ago. So Kody's cell phone fixation and that tidbit about Christine and Janelle were honestly the only interesting things to come out of Mykelti and Tony's latest video. To be fair, I'm sure it's very hard for them to come up with material while the show is on mid-season break and they don't have current episodes to watch and spill tea on. So they're kind of, grabbing at straws. But for now, we're all waiting on the second half of season 19 to roll out. So we just have to make do with whatever crumbs the Brown family members dish out on social media.
Thank you for being a loyal listener. Follow us wherever you get your podcast, because you don't want to miss the next episode. Soap Dirt is on all the major podcast platforms, including Apple Podcast, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and more.